Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan, Nathan Waddell. I'm in Edmonton, so actually the first thing I like to do with these is to do a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge that I am on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place and traveling route of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. I acknowledge, all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Was anybody here last time when we did this? I mean, I don't have everybody's videos up. I know there's a lot of people here, but if you're here with me last time, I talked a lot about heavy metal music, and I'm sorry, but not sorry, but we're going to do that again today. We're going to talk about some heavy metal, but not too much. My topic today is the words you choose, because I think as poets, it's pretty important, the words we choose. So, yeah. I've been a poet for 32 years, I suppose, something like that. And I traced my genesis as a poet to my high school days and hearing Metallica's And Justice for All album for the first time, and it blew my mind. And instead of picking up a guitar, I picked up a pen, because I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't choose the guitar, but I did like to write. And yeah, I got the CD and I tried to find it. Actually, I tried to find it so I could show you guys, but it's lost, long lost. Everything's digital now. But the lyrics in this particular album were they were white text on a black background, and they had weight and gravity. You know what I mean? You know, the music I listened to up to that point was all party rock, right? Let's go get wasted. But Metallica was talking about serious stuff, and it really glommed onto my soul, you know. And I was like, that's what I want to do. But I was 15 years old, so what I could do was make my friends laugh. I wasn't so good at writing this gravity and weight stuff, but I was good at making my friends laugh. So I started doing that. I started writing at lunchtime in the hallway. Me and my friends hang out at lunchtime. And I just write a poem and I show it to them. I was writing like a poem a day. I'm like, hey, look at this one. And they laugh. And I'll happily admit that right now, like, I can look back and be like, the humor was a little bit of a shield. You know, what I really want to do was be serious and write stuff. Like I keep saying, using that word weight and gravity. That's what I wanted. But I kept kind of almost hiding behind humor. But at least it was a start, right? It's a start. We all got to start somewhere. You know, humor can be a shield. It can be a useful tool, but for me, I think it was a shield. And I want to show you, I want to read you a poem I wrote way back then, because I noticed all this music that I'm discovering and loving, this metal music. The song titles were all, you know, had blood in it, or hell, or souls, or death. So I'm like, okay, that is the rule of metal music. You got to have blood, hell, souls, death somewhere in the title. So I wrote a poem called Blood, Hell, Souls, Death, and I'll read it to you. This is from 1990, 1991. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's really bad. It is really bad. But this got me started. Blood and hell and souls and death. Scream it all in the same breath. Say it all with just one word, one that no one's ever heard. Anyways, it goes on and on and on. I go each of those four words gets a stanza, and it's terrible, deliberately terrible in a way. You know, I was making fun, taking the piss out of the music that I loved, making my friends laugh. But I chose those four words: blood and hell and souls and death, and that became my thing. All the poems I wrote after that had to have at least one of those four words, and ideally all four. Ideally, I remember there was a poetry contest was just announced just randomly. It felt like at lunchtime. It's like, hey, if you want to take part in a poetry contest, come down to this room at lunchtime and you'll write a poem. You'll have a half an hour to write a poem. So I'm like, sweet. I headed down there, you know, told my buddies, can't play football today, go and write poetry. And the topic they gave us was anticipation. So I wrote a poem. It's no longer with us, I don't think, but I remember I worked in blood, hell, souls, death into the poem, and, you know, had fun with it. And I want a pen. won a prize way back in grade 10 or grade 11. But yeah, those were my four words that I chose. I worked them into my essays too, all my writing. And my teachers just loved me. No, they didn't. They didn't love me. But eventually you grow up and you move on. In the early years of this century, maybe 2003, I started a blog. And again, it was just to make my friends laugh. I won't even go into too much about that blog. It still exists, but the point of it is not relevant today. But yeah, I kept writing poetry, kept trying to make my friends laugh. And, but at the same time, I was an adult. I was growing up and I was working in a coal mine, actually, for a lot of years. I worked for like 27 years in an open pit coal mine. And that became pretty big part of my life. Pretty big thing. So obviously that started seeping into my writing as well. And actually 12 years ago, almost to the day, 12 years ago, I found this poem that I wrote. And I want to read that one to you as well. It's called What Hell Is. Preacher says hell is sulfur and brimstone, a lake of fire, the absence of God. But he's full of shit because I know hell is a pit, gouged from the side of a mountain, carved, torn, and bombed from solid rock, where giant machines bigger than dinosaurs spit diesel fumes and piss hydraulic fluid. The only devils are dust devils made of coal from that goddamned wind that never stops. We curse it hard enough to make a demon blush. When you're out there all night and you find yourself knocked to the ground, watching your own blood drip onto the mud, you think, that preacher was right about one thing. There ain't no God here, but hell isn't red. Hell is black. So that was 12 years ago. I would have been, 35. I don't think I had that Blood, Hell, Souls, Death poem in mind when I wrote it. I don't think so, but it's interesting that blood, at least, and hell show up in that poem. Looking back now, I can see an interesting thing happened in my life from coal mining. It's a dirty and an ugly job. And I started thinking of myself as a dirty and an ugly man. And not to denigrate myself, almost as a point of pride. It's a dirty and ugly job, and we're dirty and ugly people that do it. And hell yeah, you know what I mean? Took pride in that. But I think what happens when you consider yourself to be dirty and ugly, like literally dirty, like dirt, I'm not mean like ribald and silly jokes in that sense. I mean, like, we were always dirty. Like our fingerprints always had a smudge to it. Even on your holidays, you touch paper and it get brown. Yeah, it's a dirty and ugly job, and I felt like a dirty and ugly person doing it. So then what happens when they weren't words I chose, maybe, but they were words that chose me. I think you're writing, as a writer, and you think of yourself in those terms. I didn't do much writing, there's not a lot of writing that from that era of my life. And what it is, what does remain is concerned with coal and dirt. Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit of my background of how I got to here. If you're here last time with me, I talked a lot about discontinuities in our lives, things that like sudden breaks, sudden changes. And for me, 2 years ago, the pandemic, it affected all of us. But also I lost my job as a coal miner. I was no longer that dirty, ugly coal miner. I was nothing. I didn't know what I was. It was a complete break with my life. It's time to start anew. It's kind of nice, kind of a blessing, and I found myself, it wasn't that I was lost, but I didn't know where I was heading anymore. All of a sudden, I didn't really know where my path was anymore. Yeah, but cool thing, you can determine your own path. You have a little bit of an opportunity to now like kind of recalibrate. It's like, okay, this is where I was. This is what the path was on. Now I'm not. So where am I going next? What next? One little stopover that I wound up doing was there's a coffee shop 2 blocks away from here, and I used to go there and write. And I wound up getting a job there. I work there now, and it's kind of fun, just being a barista, just making coffee, serving drinks, and working with people 25 years younger than me, and it's just fun. It's been good. I have a lot of tattoos all over the place, and so of course, when you're working with young people who are interested in tattoos, you start talking about tattoos a lot, and so joking around and stuff. Remember, I had one coworker, and she was quite religious, quite conservative, and so I would joke with her. I'd be like, "Hey, Julia, if you had to get tattooed, a phrase, if there's one phrase, some words that you had to get tattooed on your body, what would they be?" She's like, "Oh, geez, I don't know. I've never get a tattoo." I'm like, I know. You don't have to get a tattoo unless you don't choose by the end of the night, in which case I will choose for you, and you'll have to get it tattooed on you. But she thought about it, and she had a hard time. I was joking. I'm like, if you don't choose, I'm going to choose a Motorhead song for you. I'm so bad, baby. I don't care. That'll be your tattoo. She's like, no. And so I started asking all my coworkers, right? Like, what would you choose? And some of them had ready answers, and some of them didn't. And that's fine. It's fine. But getting something tattooed on your body is a pretty big step. And I don't have really any words tattooed on me, but I do have an answer to the question. I do have some words that I've chosen, or have chosen me maybe, during this last 2 years. Yeah. Actually, before I get into this next part, maybe I'll throw it over to I don't know if we want to do it through voice or just through the chat, but does anyone out there in Zoom land, does anyone have any words that they would get tattooed on their body, or perhaps already have tattooed on their body? What would you get if you had to do it?
Courage.
Yeah, that's a good one. Say more. What courage? What do you use courage for?
Gets you through the day.
Yeah, gets you through the day.
Yeah. Hope, serendipity, I'm seeing. Never ending. I am myself. One of my young friends at work chose Tomorrow Never Comes. And he actually did get that tattooed on his body because he wanted to remind himself that, anything you want to do today. You never know if tomorrow's going to come.
If I ever got a poem with my current cat, I think it would be Cat Interruptus, because he can sense when I even start thinking about writing poetry, and he comes running in to block it, to lay all over the journal or the pen or whatever. Whatever I'm deciding to write on, he lays right on it. So Cat Interruptus.
Yeah, that's a good one. Be a good tattoo, actually. So, yeah, thank you for your participation. I found some words in the last couple of years that I've really decided to adopt. As kind of my guiding principles, and it doesn't make for a great anecdote because they just kind of came upon me. But I got a dog. Speaking of Cat Interruptus, I got a dog. Pandemic puppy. I just remember spending a lot of time in the backyard when she was too little to go for walks, waiting for her to do her business at night and being under the stars, and in the winter, the snow, listening to my AirPods, listening to my metal music. And I listened to a lot of a band called Gojira. And I don't expect anyone to know them or be familiar with them, but they're a really wonderful band. They're super heavy, super heavy, but their lyrics are all about how trees make you sad. And I could really identify. There's one song they do called Embrace the World, and I would tell my coworkers, when I said, like, hey, what would you get tattooed on you? And they would tell me, and they're like, what about you? I'm like, well, here's a song that means a lot to me. So, man, it kind of got me through this pandemic, and it's embraced the world. And I would show the song. I'd be like, see, he might be really angry about it. He's yelling about it, but he embraces the world. And me too. I embrace the world. I literally would get that tattooed on my skin. I embrace the world. So that's one phrase that I've chosen to, these are words that I've chosen to live my life by. Another one, actually, there's a local writer. I didn't even know she was a writer. You know, when you're on Twitter and you just meet local people, and people retweet this, and you start to kind of learn who's in your community. There's a writer named Shauna LeMay. She's a novelist. She's wonderful. I hope you remember her name. Look up her novels, Rumi and the Red Handbag, Everything Affects Everyone. They're just beautiful and lovely. But before I even knew she was a writer, I saw her on Twitter and got to know her a little bit. She's a photographer. And I'm like, oh, cool photos. And then she would tweet poems she'd written and stuff. I was just like, wow. And she had a blog. And her blog is called Transactions with Beauty. And remember, I'm a dirty and ugly man. I'm a coal miner. What do I care about beauty? I really don't. Obviously, this blog, I am not the target audience. Obviously, this is not for me. But for whatever reason, I started visiting this blog and just reading what Shauna LeMay had to say. And she curates and cultivates this word, beauty. And for whatever reason, it really speaks to my soul. I want to read you some excerpts from one of her essays. And I'll just dive into it. So this is from her essay called You Are Required to Create Something Beautiful. She says, Theodore Roethke describes the necessity of creating something out of that debris. The barrenness of the poetic task, as if every day we look out at a courtyard of rubble, and from this are required to make something beautiful. We are busy and we are exhausted, but still most of us have this pull toward the poetic task, and we have a desire to live poetically. I find this very beautiful, this feeling that we are required to make something out of what we have, to sing in the silences, in the limited time we have, to make something of what we have now, of where we are. It's heartening, I think, to know that we have company in this eternal apprenticeship of ours. And to remind each other, you are required to make something beautiful. And that's my second phrase. I embrace the world, and I am required to make something beautiful. I've adopted these two phrases particularly as a writer in the last 2 years. These are my guiding principles, my guiding lights. You are required to make something beautiful. I don't know, something about that, that imperative, like it's an imperative, like you're required to make something beautiful. And I'm just like, oh my God, it hit me so hard. And, I don't feel like a beautiful person. I'm not a beautiful person. And the nice thing is, these are ideals you can strive for. They're not something you have to live up to, but you can try and you can fail, and that's fine, but you can keep working at it. And so that's, I guess, my whole message, my whole thesis statement is, if you want to be a poet, I think you have to be very careful about the words you choose to live by. If you choose the right ones, then the words you write, they'll come out of that. You know what I mean? If you embrace the world, you choose to create something beautiful, and everyone's going to be different. But if that's what comes into you, then what comes out of you will be informed by that. You know what I mean? I decided I would revisit that Blood, Hell, Souls, Death poem. I decided I'd revisit that in light of these phrases. So this is just a rough draft, nothing for publication anywhere. I won't be sending it away to any of Ivanka's literary magazines, but this is called Blood, Hell, Souls, Death 22. My soul is so tired of death and blood, and I'm bored as hell of all that stuff. But I think what I need now, and maybe for the rest of the time allotted to me, is to embrace beauty and create worlds. That's all I want to do. Yeah. So if you do that, I think if you choose to correct words for yourself, particular to you, and write those poems that only you can write, then someday, somewhere, somebody might choose your words to tattoo on their body, or at least to live by and inform their poetry. And yeah, that's all I have for you. I know that's super short, but thanks for your time, and I'm here for a little bit longer so we can discuss. We can have questions. I'll throw it over back to Marion.
Thanks, Nathan. That was great. People are wondering where they can get your book from. I posted an Amazon link, but I guess it was the US Amazon Kindle, and there's people from everywhere. So is it best if people just order from you directly, or what's the best kind of approach?
Yeah, I do have physical copies on hand here. You can order from me. I would say if you're in Canada, that'll work. It costs about $3 to mail a copy in Canada. Outside of Canada, it starts to get prohibitive, like almost not worth it. Like I had sent a couple to the States and it was like $11 just to mail it. I don't even charge $11 for the book. I only charge like $8. So that's been problematic. So if you're not in the States, or if you're not in Canada, then maybe Kindle might be the best bet. And if you are in Canada, then yeah, I'll hook you up. If you're in Edmonton, go to any Remedy, any Remedy, and they have some copies on hand that they can sell to you. So, I mean, yeah, of course, if you want to spend the $11 for shipping, then of course, but I would say just get a Kindle, just get the ebook version.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to bring up?
I think the concept of what you decide, the words you choose to live, this was kind of revelatory, but the words that you, if you want to be a poet, you have to be careful of the words that you choose to live by, and that they'll come out in your work. That was an aha, and I thank you for it.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah. And, even more than like, it's funny because, I work at the Remedy. For all those years when I was at a coal mine, I just ran machines and I didn't have to, I didn't deal with the public. It didn't matter. And now that's what I do. I deal with the public. I make people's drinks and I adopt those words. I'm like, I embrace the world. So that means every customer that comes in, this might sound really cheesy, but like every customer that comes in, I embrace them. I fall a little bit in love with them, and you have that. It's amazing the connections you make when you live by these principles. And again, sometimes I fail. Sometimes I don't embrace beauty. Sometimes I don't create anything beautiful, but I do my best. So, yeah. When I wrote this talk or whatever, kind of put it together, I was going to, because I kind of pulled a fast one, right? Like the words you choose kind of has a double meaning, right? Like in a way, I meant it to be like, oh, I will help you choose the right words to write poems with. And of course, I can't do that for you. I can't choose your words. But I thought, like, how do you choose the words to write poems on? For me, I keep this notebook, of lyrical inspiration. Where's my camera? I just write, things that strike me. I often, how can I say, music especially, I'll look at the lyrics, I'll be like, wow, I wish I had written that. I wish I had written that. And of course, you never would write it in a million years. Like you're not going to write it, someone else can. But I like to look at how people write things and be like, just get my inspiration from there. Like, so then when it's my turn to write a poem, I'll kind of fill up my brain with these syntaxes and word choices and usages, and try and kind of, try and write in the style. Like Rob Zombie is a big lyrical inspiration for me. I try and write poems in the style of Rob Zombie, and I can't. Or Gord Downey from the Tragically Hip, rest in peace. Sometimes it feels like it's like word salad. It's like they just choose random words. It's like, what? I know what all these words mean, but I never would have put them together in that order. But yeah, that is something I do.
Hey, it looks like Jim is unmuted, so are you there, Jim?
Yeah, hi. I'm trying to juggle on the computer. I have one of them. He wrote two of these poems. So about children working in chimneys. There's like one from Songs of Innocence and one from Songs of Experience. So I brought one of them up if someone maybe can grab the other one. So this one goes, the chimney sweeper, when my mother died when I was very young. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, weep, weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacre who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it. For when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot soil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was asleep, he had such a sight. The thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never one joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. And then there's a second one that talks about around this on a more darker theme of it. But so it's fantastic. I mean, you help people again, doing your profession, but then it's a very difficult profession, but it's transformative, but a difficult profession. And Blake was really talking about the plight of people working difficult jobs.
Yeah, it was a difficult job, and it's difficult not doing it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it is difficult financially, and even just like for a sense of identity. Like, I know I shared that I felt like a dirty and ugly man because of that job, but it wasn't identity. It was like a thing, right? And when you lose that, like, yeah, there's days when I come close, or you know what? No, I have little anxiety attacks. I really do. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, how did we get here? I'm 47 years old, and I lost my job. Like it's scary, but you just kind of hold on. Like I say, you hold on to those words. I embrace the world. I am required to create something beautiful. We'll get through this time. And yeah.
I thought I saw a hand from Don. Did you have
Oh,
something?
yes, thank you. So Nathan, when you said you often read things by writers you admire and you think, I wish I could write like that, or I think it's important to remember there are people who read your words and think, I wish I could write like you. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that there is probably someone out there who needs to read something that we have written or something that we're going to write, and it's going to make a big impact on them. And with our words, we're all beautiful, if that doesn't sound too trite.
No, and that's there's actually, for the sake of brevity and just conciseness, I just gave you my two main phrases, but I have a couple others that are kind of almost important, and one of them is just from a weird song from Gorillaz, actually. But there's one line in there, or even just an adjective, that I've kind of also adopted, which is, it's just two words: unimaginable sincerity. And I just love that. I mean, like, I'm Generation X. Like I say, I use humor as a shield to hide, maybe to hide from, as an armor almost. Generation X, we're known for being ironic, but unimaginable sincerity. Sometimes, yeah, people are gonna think you're cheesy. Sometimes they're gonna think you're trite, saccharine even. But I just try and really just unimaginable sincerity. That's another byword or a couple of words that I really try and live by. And you're right. You know, as writers, our words hopefully will mean life to someone else out there. That's why we do it, right? I think so. Yeah. So thanks for that. Yeah.
I think you're right, if you don't mind me interjecting at this point. A lot of people look to our words to help us navigate what we are going through as well, especially in this time with the pandemic, isolation, you know, all the various ups and downs, losing jobs, you know, they can so relate to your work. And then if you can put this down in your unique way and they can connect, it really helps them to even help themselves go a little further, no, not further, but to help them understand and kind of help themselves as well, you know, like in the healing and all of that. And if you can put this through in your words, through that medium, you know, it's gonna resonate with so many people. So, you know, celebrate the moment. I mean, celebrate might sound too festive and all of that, but they're like, I'm a firm believer of things happen to us for a certain reason, right? Look, I'm here and I am, you know, like, I'm so glad that I can listen to you and now I can connect with you with what you're going through and possibly work with you in the future and that sort of stuff. Like, who would have thought that, you know, by signing on here today, that there's so many connections being made with everybody, and, you know, celebrate the moment, where you're at, what you're doing, because there is a divine purpose in all of this. I am a firm believer in it. I have seen it happen to me in many instances, and I would like to share that with you for you to really take this and guide it and put it out there for you to just grow in, you know, like you may not imagine it, but when you're happening, you're going to say, you know what, Lana Santana said that. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? Really, thanks to Marianne for kind of being the hub, the center of this worldwide festival and literary festival, and the small press she has going on. Like, yeah, I'm just really grateful for meeting Marianne. You know, I think a lot of us could be like, she's.
I can echo that because I can certainly echo that, because here I am at the point where I'm questioning my talent as a writer. I have no degrees. I have, you know, I just have a high school. I did a little course with University of British Columbia to do the writing and drafting and outlines and so on, because I do want to be an author that people could really use my work, you know, to better themselves and the craft and all of that. But to really learn from my work as well, right? Through my life experiences. And I'm at the point where I have all these poems and I was like, what do I do with it from here? And boom, I open up Facebook and off the road poetry workshop pops up first thing as I go on Facebook the other day. And I was like, what? And I signed up, you know, and here I am today getting so much joy and upliftment and guidelines as to what to do next, publishing, all those things, all those questions I had. And again, I see, you know, the providence, right? If Marianne did not, you know, have this inspiration to create this community, then I know I'm talking for many people who probably share this, if I may be so bold, but it is such a wonderful way to connect and to even get that guidelines as what next. Because you know, like for us who don't know anything, what are the next steps? How do you get these things going? And I really applaud Marianne and everyone who were here today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Nathan. I don't know if this was a question for Nathan or just a question in the chat, but maybe you can speak to it. So Jim is saying, if words have contradictory meanings, How do we hold on to those keywords for every different situation?
It's just jumping in. I missed the first minute because I was jumping from another and I was trying to do two at once. So I missed how he was explaining it, but like because things are often very situational. So I was thinking he was saying like kind of take a few words and you always have to, just like the gospel, hold on to it without like things changing in situational, like someone might be reading the Bible. That was where my confusion was, if you see what I'm saying, because I also like the idea of Keats's negative capability, where like Shakespeare can keep a lot of contradictory characters in the air. But I thought maybe what he was getting at was that you just like faith to the Bible, you have to just grab like one word and sort of keep using it in the same way, where life is more complex than that. But again, I missed his first maybe couple minutes where he explained his idea. So just wondering.
Yeah, I'm not sure about with the Bible. I don't speak for the Bible. I'm an atheist, actually.
I'm an atheist too. I don't believe the Bible. I don't believe. I don't believe the Bible either. But I was just saying that like situations. I thought the way I interpret you were weighing is like these words are really important to me, but words have so many multiple meanings. It's not like in math where one means one. So because words have multiple meanings, how do we honor it like for each situation? Sorry, that's what I meant.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about language, is that you can play with it and have fun with it. And subtext, like I love subtext. I love implying something. And really good writers can imply something which is almost like the opposite of what they write, and I do love that. And someone in the chat, I'm trying to keep up with the chat, which is hard when I'm talking and listening, but someone said that about holding two contradictory ideas, in your mind at once. Like that's so important as a human being, not just as writers, but as a human being. You got to be able to hold nuance and shades of meaning and contradictory meaning, and you have to be comfortable with that. And I think that's it's an important life skill, especially there's a lot of messages coming at us from from so many places, and you got to hold true to those words that you choose. You got to hold true to them. Like, like there's times, something a little bit, maybe not a little bit of a tangent, but like, oh, do I swear a lot? I swear so much. Just being a coal miner, right? Like part of, you're running equipment for 12 hours all night long. You just do this constant pattern of like, just cursing, and it just helps the time go by. But then it becomes a habit. It becomes like a soundtrack in your brain, and you're always cursing. You're always just like, oh god damn it, this fucking. Sorry, I don't want to offend anybody with my words, but I've started realizing like that stream of consciousness in my own brain is counter to my desire to create something beautiful. You know what I mean? So I'm really working on just kind of. I got nothing wrong with dropping an F-bomb when it's appropriate, but I just gotta try harder to just always think about beauty, and yeah. I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable here. One work I've been trying to do, and I've been failing at this, but my wife is a counselor. She's a guidance counselor at school, so of course she has a lot of insight into psychiatric things. And I was like, I need to rewire my brain. I need to rewire my neural pathways. She's like, well, just choose one habit and try and do that every day. Whatever you want, but try and be like the first thing you do when you wake up. I'm like, okay. So I chose. I'm gonna try not to get emotional here. I chose the words Nathan. Sorry. Nathan, you are a beautiful man. I try and say that. I try to make that my first thought in the morning. And honestly, I fail. I can't do it. I very rarely am able to do that. But I'm working on it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's what I'm working on. And that's really, that will come through, in my writing. You write what you want to be, write your ideals, and then maybe your personality will catch up. Maybe, yeah. Anyways, okay, I'm floundering. Someone else say something.
I will say that Nathan is a beautiful man and you create your own reality with your thoughts and you're getting there.
Thank you. I don't even know who said that because I don't have the pictures, but thank you very much.
I
Doesn't matter
agree.
who said it.
Rewiring your neural pathways by doing that every day, eventually it will get easier and you'll come to believe it. Maybe not, maybe for a second, maybe for a couple of seconds, but as time goes by, you'll just get used to it. And one day you'll just look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say, Nathan, you are a beautiful man. So keep going. I think it's great.
Yep.
I'd like to just offer in, I was really touched by that and that kind of vulnerability, Nathan. And if I had a bell, I would have rung it. Just to have allowed you and your words to land, kind of to be like a stone in a pond, and not needing much else than that, except that kind of acknowledgement. And I think that that's what our words do. And that's what a good poem can do. And that when I like to say, when I live my life as that kind of poem, that's what it can do. And so I thank you for that. And you and I have had a real quick little thing on the, I don't know, whatever. I'm a very good friend of Shauna's too. So, you know, we have that in common, being in this neighborhood of Edmonton. So nice to hear you and thank you.
Edmonton doesn't deserve Shauna. The world doesn't deserve Shauna. She's amazing. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Say hi to her for me.
Lovely, lovely.
Thank you for your words too.
Just, you know, thank you just for sort of being open and vulnerable there. But I have found that vulnerability and the sort of channeling that pain through your poetry just produces some of the most beautiful poetry. That just has been my experience. So I'll have to check out your book. Your poetry.
my book. There's not a lot of pain and not a lot of vulnerability in my book. It's a lot of earlier writings, but you will laugh. I promise you that much. You will laugh.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so maybe as a way of saying goodbye, I'll say you can follow me on Twitter at Nathan Waddell 1. I'm trying to get onto the chat, but I don't know how to. I think I got stuck on the DMs. I don't know how to do the universal chat.
I put it in.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, and actually on Tuesday, I'm gonna have, do you know Paragraph Planet? I have a 75-word story in Paragraph Planet on Tuesday. So feel free to check that out, and I'll make sure to tweet it out. And yeah. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Marian. Thank you for coming, for listening, and for sharing this time with me.